The large metal doors slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador William Clark walked into the grand hall of the Galactic Council for the first time. His black suit was clean and neat. His face showed no fear, though he was the first human to ever step foot in this place. The room was huge. Curved walls rose high above, meeting in a dome of clear material that showed the stars beyond. 17 different alien species sat in raised seats that formed a half circle. They all looked down at Clark, human Ambassador William Clark of Earth. A voice boomed through the room. It belonged to a tall, thin alien with blue skin and no hair. You may approach the center. Clark walked forward with steady steps. His shoes made soft sounds on the polished floor. He felt the eyes of every alien on him, but he did not look nervous. He had faced worse things than curious aliens. The Council acknowledges Earth's request to join the galactic community, the blue alien said. I am High Counselor Elthar of the Axrian people. We will hear your case. Clark stood straight and tall. He was not a young man. His hair was gray at the sides, and lines marked his face, but his eyes were sharp and missed nothing. Before becoming a diplomat, Clark had served for 30 years in special operations on Earth. He had been a soldier, a spy, and sometimes, when needed, something worse. Few people knew this about him. The aliens certainly did not. Honored counselors, Clark said in a clear voice that carried through the hall, Earth thanks you for this opportunity. We come in peace and friendship, seeking to learn from and contribute to the galactic community. As he spoke, Clark studied each alien carefully. The large insect-like creatures to his right made him most alert. They were the Vracs. Their hard outer shells were dark green, and their eyes were made of many small parts like insect eyes on Earth. Their front limbs ended in sharp points. Clark had read reports about them. The Vracs were warriors. They handled the Council's military matters. One of the Vracs leaned forward. Its mouth parts moved rapidly, making clicking sounds. Supreme Commander Krazathul asks what Earth can offer the Council, said the translator device in Clark's ear. The Vracs believe you are a primitive species barely out of your solar system. Clark smiled politely. Earth has only recently developed. Faster than light travel, that is true. But we have much to offer. Our medical science has made great advances. Our art and culture are diverse, and humans are very good at solving problems in new ways. The Vracs made more clicking sounds. The translator said, Many species claim special abilities. What makes humans different? Adaptability, Clark said simply. Humans can adapt to almost any situation. We learn quickly. We survive. A different alien spoke up. This one looked almost like a jellyfish, floating in a special container. The human speaks well, but we must follow proper procedure. Ambassador Clark will present Earth's full application tomorrow. Tonight, he will be our guest. Clark bowed his head. Thank you, Counselor. A small figure approached Clark. It was a human woman with short brown hair. Dr. Samantha Powell was the only other human on the station. She had arrived weeks earlier to prepare for Clark's visit. As a top expert in alien languages and cultures, she was his most valuable team member. This way, Ambassador, she said quietly. I'll show you to your quarters. They walked out of the council chamber and down a long hallway. The walls were made of some strange material that seemed both solid and slightly moving, like water frozen. In time. How did it go? Powell asked when they were alone. About as expected, Clark said. The Vracs don't like us. The others are curious. No one seems very impressed. Powell nodded. The Vracs have been asking many questions about Earth's defenses. I don't trust them. Neither do I, Clark said. What have you learned about the station? It's called Nexus Station. Built by the Axrians about 500 years ago. 17 species live here permanently. Security is tight in public areas, but... She lowered her voice. I've placed our special monitoring devices as you requested. Clark nodded. On the surface, he was just a diplomat. But old habits died hard. He never went anywhere without taking security precautions. The tiny drones Powell had released throughout the station were so small, no alien scanning technology could detect them. They would record everything. "Good work," Clark said. "Where are we staying?" "Diplomatic Wing, Section 7. It's not the best location." The Vraks made sure of that. They entered a small room. It had basic furniture, a bed, a desk, and chairs designed to fit human bodies. The walls were plain white. "Not exactly five-star accommodations," Clark said with a small smile. "The Vraks wanted to put you in Section 12 next to the waste processing units," Powell said. "I had to argue with them for 3 days to get this instead." Clark put his diplomatic case on the desk. The case contained standard items, documents, a communication device, and a few personal belongings. It also contained a few things that were not standard for diplomats, hidden in secret compartments that would not show up on scans. "Get some rest," Powell said. "Tomorrow will be a long day. Your formal presentation is scheduled for the morning session. Then you have meetings with representatives from each species." "All 17 in one day?" Clark raised an eyebrow. The Vraks insisted on an accelerated schedule. "I think they're hoping you'll make mistakes if you're tired." "They don't know me very well," Clark said. After Powell left, Clark carefully checked the room for listening devices. He found 3 and left them in place. Let them listen to him sleeping. Then he took out a small device and swept for more advanced surveillance. He found nothing else. Clark prepared for bed, following the same routine he had used for decades. He placed small sensors by the door and the air vent. He put his diplomatic case under the bed, positioned so he could reach it quickly. Then he lay down, not fully undressed, ready to move at a moment's notice. As he closed his eyes, Clark thought about Earth, about the hopes of billions riding on his shoulders. Humanity needed allies in the galaxy. They needed this to work. But Clark had a feeling it wouldn't be simple. Something in the way the Vraks had watched him made him uneasy. 30 years of special operations had taught him to trust his instincts. Just before falling asleep, he touched the small emergency beacon, hidden in his watch. If anything happened, Powell would know instantly. Clark slept lightly as always, ready for whatever might come. Clark woke instantly. Something was wrong. The room was dark and silent, but his senses told him danger was near. Years of training had made his body alert to threats even in sleep. He lay still, eyes barely open, listening. There. A soft scraping sound from above. Someone was in the ceiling space. Slowly, Clark moved his hand under the pillow where he had hidden a small device. Not a weapon. Bringing weapons to the council station was forbidden. But Clark had other tools. The ceiling panel moved slightly. Clark counted in his head. 3, 2, 1. The panel crashed down and a large shape dropped into the room. Clark was already moving. He rolled off the bed as the shape landed where he had been seconds before. The lights turned on automatically. Clark saw his attacker clearly now. It was a Vraks. The insect-like alien was larger up close than Clark had expected. Its outer shell gleamed darkly and its many-faceted eyes fixed on Clark. It held a strange weapon in one of its front limbs. "Ambassador Clark." The Vrax's translator device spoke in a flat voice. "A regrettable incident is about to occur." Clark stood calmly, as if facing armed aliens in his bedroom was normal. "Is it? I don't think your council would approve of attacking a diplomat. The council will never know. You will have suffered a tragic accident. Humans are fragile after all." The Vraks raised its weapon. Clark moved with surprising speed for a man his age. He grabbed the lamp from the bedside table and threw it at the Vrax's face. The alien fired its weapon, but the shot went wide, hitting the wall. A patch of the wall material sizzled and dissolved. "Acid weapon," Clark noted mentally. "Nasty." Before, the Vraks could fire again. Clark closed the distance between them. The alien was strong, but Clark had fought stronger opponents. He struck at the joint where the Vrax's arm connected to its body. The alien made a high-pitched clicking sound that might have been pain. The door to the room slid open. 2 more. Vrax entered, both armed with the same acid weapons. 3 against 1, Clark said. Not very sporting. He did not wait for their response. He dived toward the bed, reaching underneath for his diplomatic case. The Vraks fired. acid splashing against the wall where Clark had been standing a moment before. Clark's fingers found the case. He pressed his thumb against the hidden scanner, and a compartment opened that would not show up on any security scan. Inside was a small device that looked like a pen. The first Virax had recovered and was moving toward Clark. The alien was fast, its multiple legs carrying it across the room. In seconds. Clark rolled away, came up to one knee, and pointed the pen-like device at the Virax. He pressed the hidden button. A high-pitched sound filled the room, too high for human ears to detect. But the Virax all froze, their limbs trembling. The sound affected their nervous systems, temporarily paralyzing them. Clark did not waste the opportunity. He moved quickly, disarming all three Virax. He took their communication devices as well, dropping them into a glass of water on the desk. Then he went to the wall panel and pressed the emergency button. This would alert station security. But Clark knew that by the time they arrived, the Virax would have a story ready. Still, he had to follow protocol. Next, he pressed a small button hidden in his watch. This would alert Dr. Powell through their private communication system. The sound device would only keep the Virax paralyzed for a few more minutes. Clark used the time to check the aliens for identification. They wore no badges or markings. Professional killers then. Deniable assets. The first Virax began to move again, its limbs twitching. Clark stepped back, ready to defend himself if needed. But the alien seemed weakened by the sonic device. "Who sent you?" Clark asked. The Virax made an angry, clicking sound. "This changes nothing, human. You are not welcome in the Council. Earth will never be accepted." "That's not for you to decide," Clark said. "The Council votes, not assassins." The door slid open. Again. Clark tensed, ready for more attackers. But it was Dr. Powell, along with a large, purple-skinned alien Clark recognized as a Kelthid, one of the station's security officers. "Ambassador Clark." Powell's eyes widened at the scene before her. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Clark said. "Just some unexpected visitors." The Kelthid security officer, whose name badge translated as Vrost, looked at the three Virax on the floor. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Explain," Vrost's translator said. The lead Virax had recovered enough to stand. It pointed at Clark. "This human attacked us. We came to discuss diplomatic matters and he assaulted us." "At night through my ceiling with acid weapons?" Clark raised an eyebrow. "Interesting diplomatic approach." Vrost looked at the hole in the wall where the acid had hit. "Those are military-grade weapons, forbidden in the diplomatic section." More security officers arrived, including 2 more Virax. Clark noticed how they quickly moved to stand near the 3 attackers. There was a quick exchange of clicks and whistles that the translators did not pick up. "This is a diplomatic incident," one of the new Virax said. "These officers are part of the Virax delegation and have immunity. We will take them and investigate this matter internally." Frost seemed uncertain. Protocol requires that diplomatic immunity be respected," the Virax interrupted. "Unless Earth wishes to file a formal complaint with the full Council, that would certainly delay their application process, possibly for years." Clark caught Powell's eye. She gave a tiny shake of her head. "Not worth it. Not yet. No complaint. At this time," Clark said smoothly. "Just a misunderstanding, I'm sure." The Virax security officers helped their 3 companions leave. Clark noticed they took the weapons with them, removing evidence. When they were gone, Frost turned to Clark. "You are unharmed?" "Yes, thank you. How did you defeat 3 Virax warriors?" "They are among the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy." Clark smiled. "Lucky, I guess." Frost did not look convinced. "The Virax have never failed an assassination attempt in recorded history." "There's a first time for everything," Clark said. After Vrost left, Powell helped Clark clean up the room. "The Virax will deny everything," she said. "They'll say you imagined it or that it was a security drill." Clark nodded. "Of course, and tomorrow we'll attend the council session as if nothing happened." "You still want to go forward with the application?" Powell looked surprised. "More than ever," Clark said. "If the Virax want us gone this badly, There must be something about humans that truly worries them. I want to know what it is. Powell smiled. You're not what they expected. That's for sure. Clark straightened his tie, the only sign of the fight being a small cut above his eyebrow. Humans rarely are. The council chamber looked different in the morning light. Sunlight from the nearby star streamed through the clear dome above, casting bright patterns on the floor. Clark walked in wearing a fresh suit, his face showing no signs of the night's events except for a small bandage above his eyebrow. Powell walked beside him carrying a data pad. She looked nervous, her eyes moving from one alien delegation to another. She leaned close to Clark. The Vrax delegation is here in full force, she whispered. Including Supreme Commander Krazuthul himself. Clark nodded. Good. I want them to see this. The blue-skinned High Counselor Elthar raised a hand, and the room fell silent. The Council recognizes Ambassador William Clark of Earth, who will present his planet's application for membership consideration. Clark stepped forward to the center of the room. All eyes were on him. The Vrax delegation sat together, their hard shells gleaming under the lights. Krazuthul's compound eyes fixed on Clark with what seemed like surprise. Perhaps he had expected the human to be absent, or dead. Honored Council members, Clark began. Before I present Earth's application, I must address an incident that occurred last night. A murmur ran through the chamber. Powell looked worried. This was not part of their plan. 3 armed individuals entered my quarters last night through the ceiling. They carried weapons that are forbidden in the diplomatic section. They attempted to kill me. Clark's voice was calm but carried to every corner of the room. The council members shifted in their seats. Some leaned forward with interest. Others looked at the Vrax delegation. Krazuthul stood up. These are serious accusations, human. Where is your evidence? The security cameras in your section experienced a technical failure last night. How convenient, Clark said. He nodded to Powell, who pressed a button on her data pad. A large display appeared in the center of the room. It showed clear images of 3 Vrax soldiers entering Clark's room through the ceiling. It showed them carrying weapons. It showed the attack. The council chamber erupted in shocked sounds, clicks, whistles, and rumbles from various species. The cameras may have failed, Clark said. But Earth takes security seriously. Dr. Powell released microscopic recording devices throughout the station when we arrived, a standard diplomatic precaution. Krazuthul's mandibles clicked rapidly. This is an outrage. Spying on the council. These devices are not authorized. The jellyfish-like counselor floated forward in its container. Neither are assassination attempts, Supreme Commander. These images are disturbing. Clark raised a hand. Earth does not wish to disrupt council proceedings with accusations. We simply want the truth known, and we want to proceed with our application. High Counselor Elthar's long fingers tapped on the podium. The council will investigate this matter fully. In the meantime, we will hear Earth's application as scheduled. Clark proceeded to present Earth's case for membership. He spoke of human achievements in science, art, and medicine. He explained Earth's system of nations and their newly formed united government. He showed images of Earth's cities, forests, and oceans. Throughout his presentation, Clark watched the Vrax delegation. They sat stiffly, their body language unreadable to human eyes. But Powell had studied their behavior patterns. She sent Clark a private message on his data pad. They're angry but worried. You've surprised them. When Clark finished, Elthar asked, Does any council member wish to question the Earth representative? Krazuthul stood immediately. The Vrax have questions. Many questions. For the next hour, the Vrax commander fired question after question at Clark. How many ships did Earth have? What weapons? How many soldiers? Why did humans spend so much on military technology if they were peaceful? Clark answered each question calmly, neither hiding information nor volunteering more than was asked. Yes, Earth had a military. Yes, they had weapons that could destroy their own planet many times over. A sad legacy of their past conflicts. But they had not had a global war in over 50 years. And yet, Krazuthul said, Your kind seems remarkably skilled at combat. One unarmed human against 3 Vrax warriors. How do you explain that? Clark smiled slightly. As I said yesterday, humans are adaptable. We learn quickly. We survive. The abiding questioning continued. Other species asked about Earth's resources, its political systems, its approach to alien life. Clark felt that most were genuinely curious, even friendly. Only the Vrax remained hostile. As the session ended, Elthar announced, "The Council will deliberate on Earth's application. We will reconvene tomorrow for more questions." As everyone began to leave, a tall, thin alien with pale skin approached Clark. Powell tensed, but Clark remained calm. "Ambassador Clark," the alien said through its translator. "I am Delegate Ziv, of the Halari. My people would be honored if you would join us for a meal this evening." Clark bowed slightly. "The honor would be mine, Delegate." After Ziv left, Powell said quietly, "That's interesting. The Halari rarely interact with new species." "They're scientists, right?" Clark asked. "Yes, the best biologists in the Council. They study evolution and adaptation." Powell looked thoughtful. "Maybe they're curious about how you fought off the Vrax. Or maybe they just like my charming personality," Clark said with a small smile. Powell rolled her eyes. "Sure, that must be it." As they walked out of the chamber, Clark noticed Frost, the security officer from the night before, watching him. The 4-eyed alien gave what might have been a nod of respect. In the corridor, Clark and Powell passed the Vrax delegation. Krazathul stepped in front of them, blocking their path. The Vrax commander towered over Clark, nearly twice his height. "You have made an enemy today, human," Krazathul said, his mandibles clicking angrily. Clark looked up at the large alien without fear. "I came here to make friends, Commander. You chose differently." "We have ways of dealing with threats to the Council," Krazathul said. "So do we," Clark replied evenly. "I suggest we try diplomacy instead. It's less messy." For a moment, tension filled the air. Then Krazathul stepped aside. As Clark and Powell walked away, the commander called after them. "This is not over, Ambassador." Clark didn't look back. "It never is," he said quietly to Powell. "But at least now they know what they're dealing with." "And what's that?" Powell asked. "A human who doesn't die easily," Clark said, "and who comes prepared." Powell gave him a long look. "The Council is starting to understand that. I'm not sure if it will help or hurt our application." "Either way," Clark said, "they'll remember this. The first time they met humans, the first time they underestimated us. And probably not the last," Powell added. Clark straightened his tie. "Definitely not the last." The Halari dining hall was nothing like Clark expected. Instead of chairs and tables, there were shallow pools filled with a clear liquid that wasn't water. The Halari themselves floated in these pools, their thin bodies moving gently. "Please. Sit here," Delegate Ziv said, pointing to a raised platform beside one of the pools. "We have prepared it for human comfort." Clark sat cross-legged on the soft platform. Powell sat beside him, looking around with interest. "Our sensors indicate that humans cannot breathe underwater," Ziv said. "Is this correct?" "Yes, that's correct," Clark said. "We need air." Ziv made a bubbling sound that the translator didn't catch. "Fascinating. Such limitations, yet you survive." Food was brought out. For the Halari, it was living creatures that swam in their pools. For the humans, it was a plate of items that looked almost like earth vegetables. "We studied your biology," Ziv explained. "These foods should be safe for you to eat." Clark tried a piece. It tasted like cucumber with a hint of cinnamon. "Strange, but not unpleasant." "Thank you for your hospitality," Clark said. "I'm curious why you invited us." Ziv's large eyes blinked slowly. "The Halari value adaptation above all else. Species that can change and survive. Humans are interesting to us." "Because I survived the Vrax attack?" Clark asked. "Partly," Ziv said. "But also because of Earth's history. We accessed your public data networks. Your species has survived many near extinctions. You adapt quickly. You learn from your enemies. Powell leaned forward. You've been studying us? Of course. We study all potential new species. Clark ate another piece of the cucumber-like food. And what have you learned about humans? Ziv moved closer to the edge of the pool. That you are dangerous, not like the Vraks who use strength in numbers. Humans are dangerous because you never stop trying. You never accept defeat. Is that bad? Clark asked. It is concerning to some council members, Ziv said. The Vraks fear any species that might challenge them. They have been the council's military force for 500 years. They do not wish to share that role. Earth doesn't want to take over the council's military, Powell said quickly. We just want to join the galactic community. Ziv made the bubbling sound again. Perhaps. But consider this. In just 3 days, one human has survived a Vrak's assassination attempt, exposed their plot to the council, and gained the attention of 5 major council races. The Vraks are right to be worried. Clark smiled slightly. We're just doing our job, Delegate Ziv. Earth sent us to make friends. Is that truly all Earth wants? Ziv asked. Just friendship? Before Clark could answer, his communication device made a soft sound. He checked it and frowned. Excuse me, Delegate. We have an urgent message from Earth. Ziv waved a thin arm. Of course, you may use the private room through that door. Clark and Powell went to the small room and closed the door. Powell checked for listening devices while Clark activated the secure communication channel. A man's face appeared on the small screen. General Richard Hayes, commander of Earth's Defense Force, looked tired but alert. Ambassador Clark, Hayes said, we received your report about the assassination attempt. The President has authorized me to bring support. What kind of support? Clark asked. The EDF Vigilant is already on its way to the council station. I'm commanding personally. Clark frowned. A military vessel? That might send the wrong message, General. Hayes shook his head. Not after what happened to you. Besides, the Vigilant is officially listed as a diplomatic support vessel. And I'm bringing something that might help your case. What is it? Information, Hayes said. Our intelligence division has been monitoring Vrak's communications for months. We've found evidence that they've blocked other species from joining the council before, sometimes permanently. Powell gasped. You mean they've wiped out other species? Not directly, Hayes said, but they've engineered accidents that led to the destruction of several promising civilizations. They're keeping the council small and controlled. Clark thought for a moment. When will you arrive? Tomorrow during the next council session. The Vraks won't be happy to see us. They're already not happy, Clark said. This will just give them more reasons. Hayes smiled grimly. Good. Let them show their true nature to the council. It's time. The other species knew who they're really dealing with. After the call ended, Powell looked worried. Is this wise? Bringing a military ship here could provoke the Vraks even more. That might be exactly what we need, Clark said. The Vraks have been hiding their actions from the council. Let's see what happens when everything is out in the open. They returned to the dining area where Ziv was waiting patiently. Is everything well with Earth? The Halari asked. Yes, Clark said, but we may have some unexpected visitors tomorrow. Ziv's body rippled in what might have been excitement. The rumors are true, then? Earth is sending a ship? Clark raised an eyebrow. News travels fast. The council has many ears, Ziv said. Many eyes. Little happens that someone does not notice. Will this cause problems for our application? Powell asked. Ziv moved in a way that the translator indicated was equivalent to a shrug. It will cause discussions. Some will see it as aggressive, others as prudent. And the Halari, how will you see it? We will see it as adaptation, Ziv said. Humans responding to a threat. Most interesting. As they left the Halari dining hall, Clark and Powell were met by Vrost, the security officer. Ambassador Clark, Vrost said, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. I must inform you that the Vrak's delegation has filed a formal complaint against you. On what grounds? Clark asked. Unauthorized surveillance of council facilities. diplomatic misconduct, making false accusations. Vrost's voice remained neutral. They are calling for your immediate removal from the station. Powell looked alarmed, but Clark just nodded. I expected as much. When will the council hear these charges? Tomorrow's session, before your application is discussed further. Perfect timing, Clark said. Thank you, Officer Vrost. After Vrost left, Powell stared at Clark. Perfect timing? They're trying to throw us off the station and you think that's perfect? Clark began walking toward their quarters. Hayes will arrive during tomorrow's session. The Vrax will be focused on their complaint against us. They won't be expecting a human military ship to appear. And then what? We start a war on our first visit to the council? No, Clark said firmly. Then we show the council the truth. The Vrax have been manipulating them for centuries. It's time for that to end. Powell shook her head. This is a dangerous game, Ambassador. Diplomacy usually is, Clark said, especially when the other side starts with assassination attempts. Back in his quarters, which had been repaired and now had a full security team outside, Clark looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the EDF Vigilant was heading toward them, carrying Earth's most advanced technology and evidence that could change the balance of power in the Council. Tomorrow would be a turning point. For Clark, for Earth, for the entire galactic community. Clark straightened his tie and began preparing for the most important diplomatic session of his life. The council chamber was more crowded than usual. Word had spread about the Vrax complaint against the human ambassador. Many aliens who normally did not attend sessions had come to watch. They filled the viewing areas along the walls, their various eyes, sensors, and other sensing organs all focused on the center of the room. Clark stood calmly at the center podium. Powell stood slightly behind him, holding her datapad. Across from them, Supreme Commander Krazathul and 5 other Vrax stood at their own podium. High Counselor Elthar raised his blue hands for silence. This emergency session will now begin. The Vrax delegation has filed a formal complaint against Ambassador William Clark of Earth. Commander Krazathul, you may present your case. Krazathul stepped forward, his many-faceted eyes gleaming. The Vrax demand that Earth's application be rejected immediately. Ambassador Clark has violated council law by placing unauthorized surveillance devices throughout this station. He has made false accusations against the Honorable Vrax delegation. He has brought shame to these proceedings. Elthar turned to Clark. Ambassador, how do you respond to these serious charges? Clark straightened his tie. High Counselor, members of the Council, I acknowledge that Earth placed monitoring devices on the station. This was done for my protection, which proved necessary when Vrax assassins attempted to kill me in my quarters. Lies! Krazathul's mandibles clicked rapidly. Where is your proof? Your devices conveniently showed what you wanted them to show. The recordings were not edited, Clark said calmly. But I understand the Council's concern. That is why I have additional evidence to present today. At that moment, alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. A voice spoke over the station's communication system. Unidentified vessel approaching. Military configuration detected. The council members looked around in confusion. Krazathul turned to Clark, his body language showing anger. Is this your doing, human? He demanded. I believe that's my ride, Clark said with a small smile. Elthar received a message on his podium screen. The vessel identifies itself as the EDF Vigilant from Earth. It is requesting permission to dock and send a representative to the council. Denied, Krazathul shouted. This is a breach of protocol. No military vessels are allowed near the council station without prior approval. The Vigilant is registered as a diplomatic support vessel, Clark said. And given recent events, Earth felt additional security was prudent. Elthar looked troubled. The council must vote on whether to allow this vessel to dock. The vote was close. 7 species voted to allow the Earthship to dock. 8 voted against. The Vrax looked triumphant. But then Delegate Ziv of the Halari raised a thin arm. The Halari change our vote. We wish to hear what the humans have to say. With that, the vote became tied. Elthar, as High Counselor, would cast the deciding vote. I have served this council for 200 years, Elthar said slowly. In that time I have learned that it is better to hear all sides before making judgments. The Earth vessel may dock. Their representative may address the council. The Vrax delegation buzzed with angry clicks. Kraz-Thul looked as if he might protest further, but he remained silent. 30 minutes later, the doors to the council chamber opened. A tall, broad-shouldered human male in a dark uniform walked in. General Richard Hayes carried himself with the confidence of someone used to command. He nodded respectfully to Clark as he passed. General Hayes, commander of Earth's Defense Force. Hayes introduced himself. Thank you for allowing me to address this council. Why have you come here, General? Elthar asked. Your timing is concerning. I've come to support Ambassador Clark, Hayes said, and to share important information with the council, information about the Vrax. Kraz-Thul stepped forward. This is outrageous. We are here to discuss the humans' violations, not to listen to more lies. Hayes removed a small device from his pocket and placed it on the podium. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed images of Vrax ships near various planets. It showed communications logs. It showed records of meetings between Vrax commanders and shadowy figures identified as the Purifiers. For the past year, Earth has been monitoring Vrax communications, Hayes said. We've discovered evidence of a systematic campaign to prevent new species from joining the Council. The attack on Ambassador Clark wasn't an isolated incident. The holographic display changed to show a list of 17 species names. These were all candidates for Council membership in the past 50 years. All experienced accidents during their application process. All withdrew their applications. 7 of these species no longer exist. The council chamber erupted in shocked sounds. The Vrax delegation stood frozen, mandibles clicking rapidly in what seemed like private communication. Elthar raised his hands for silence. These are grave accusations, General Hayes. Can you prove these claims? All the evidence is here, Hayes said, pointing to the device. Full records of Vrax communications with a group called the Purifiers, xenophobic extremists dedicated to keeping the Council small and under Vrax military control. Kraz-Thul suddenly moved toward Hayes, his limbs extended in what could only be a threatening gesture. This human lies. The Vrax have protected the Council for centuries. We demand. He never finished. Clark moved between Hayes and Kraz-Thul with surprising speed. When the Vrax commander reached for Hayes, Clark caught his limb and twisted it in a way that made Kraz-Thul freeze in pain. I wouldn't, Clark said quietly. Diplomatic immunity only goes so far. Security officers rushed forward but stopped, unsure what to do. A human was holding the supreme commander of the Vrax in what appeared to be a painful lock. Release me. Human, Kraz-Thul hissed. Of course, Clark said, letting go and stepping back. Just a misunderstanding, I'm sure. The council session continued for hours. The evidence Hayes brought was examined by experts from multiple species. The Vrax denied everything, but the communications records were clear. They had been systematically eliminating potential rivals for centuries. When the final vote came, it was not even close. 15 species voted to accept Earth's application for membership consideration. Only the Vrax and one of their closest allies voted against. The Council welcomes Earth to begin the formal membership process, Elthar announced. And we will form a special committee to investigate the evidence against the Vrax delegation. As the session ended, Clark, Powell, and Hayes stood together near the exit. Kraz-Thul approached them, his body language unreadable to most. But Clark had studied the Vrax carefully. You have won this round, human, Kraz-Thul said. But the game is not over. It's not a game, Commander, Clark said. It's the future. Earth wants peaceful relations with all species, including the Vrax. We're not here to take your place, we're here to find our own. Kraz-Thul studied Clark for a long moment. You are different from the others. They were weak. You are not. Humans have had to be strong to survive, Clark said. But strength doesn't have to mean conflict. We shall see, Kraz-Thul said. Then surprisingly, He extended a limb toward Clark in what Powell had explained was a Vrax gesture of respect between warriors. Clark hesitated, then took the offered limb carefully. "We shall see indeed, Commander." As Krazathul walked away, Hayes looked at Clark with raised eyebrows. "Making friends already?" "Not friends," Clark said, straightening his tie. "But perhaps not enemies forever either. The Vrax respect strength now they know humans have it." "What happens next?" Powell asked. Clark looked around the council chamber, at the many different alien species now looking at the humans with new interest. "Now the real work begins. Earth has a place at the table. Let's make sure we use it wisely." 3 months later, a new Earth embassy opened on Nexus Station. Earth ships began trading with 17 different worlds. Human scientists started working with alien researchers on projects that would benefit all species. And in a quiet corner of the station, Ambassador William Clark, the human who had fought death and won, the diplomat in a suit who had changed, the balance of power in the galaxy, sat across from Supreme Commander Krazathul, teaching him a human game called chess. "Check," Clark said. Krazathul studied the board with his compound eyes. "Interesting strategy. I did not see it coming." Clark smiled slightly. "That's something you should remember about humans, Commander." "What is that?" Krazathul asked. "We're full of surprises.